filmed, and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And as always, can I ask everyone to mute their microphones when not speaking? First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Jones, Councillor Patel, Councillor Knight is joining us online, as is Councillor Sajid. We also have Councillor Mr Hussaini online. I understand Councillor Watkins is also unable to join us this evening, so the agenda item will, the invited speaker session will not continue. In terms of announcements, first thing I just wanted to, it's an agenda announcement such. On the exempt items, I'm going to reverse the items on the agenda so that for Councillor Strawn's benefit more than anything else, so Councillor Strawn is able to attend, because one of the items relates to Councillor Strawn's non-pecuniary interests at some point. Other than that, in terms of announcements, just one thing for me, I attended the East Bed concert band on Saturday evening, right in the middle of the football, which is really good. Really great performance by the East Bed concert band, and even more a great performance by one of the attendees as well, who ensured that every member of the public that was in attendance knew what the football result was, given he cheered. So good from that. I'm going to move on to the next item then, members' questions.
Order, Chairman, you haven't taken declarations of interest yet.
Hang on a second. Yeah, you're quite right. Declarations of interest, Councillor Strawn. Come on. Any declarations of interest on any agenda item? Councillor Strawn?
Non-pecuniary in item 10J and 16A.
10J, 16A. Okay, thank you. Councillor Kilcher?
Non-pecuniary 10I.
Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. We'll move on to straight on to item 6 and members' questions. Any members' questions?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
I missed another one. Hold on. Public open session. Right.
Public open session.
Right. I'm going to start at the beginning. Right. So we've done apologies for absence. We've done declarations of interest. Right. Town Mayor's announced. I think we've done that one. Public open session. Any members of the public wishing to speak? Councillor Fage. Would you like? Anyone want to take over this evening? It's not going well.
I'm going to speak actually, but I changed my mind after you diverted to allow me to. Just on item 13A. So this is in relation to the UK SPF. So firstly, I think this is a really good example of how the town council can help coordinate other groups in the town who are well positioned to bid for pieces of funding. I guess the only thing to think about here, I guess, and I think I've got the criteria right, and I think I'm right in saying that town and parish councils can bid for funding themselves. So I just wonder whether there is anything in the pipeline that is perhaps on the cultural side of the council or historical side of the council, small projects that this pot of money could lend itself to, because, you know, that's something that would therefore not perhaps need to be funded out of another pot of money. So I don't know whether something related to the bicycles, or I remember seeing something on one of the committee agendas around sort of plaques around the town where there are sort of historic things and drawing on some of our history there. I don't know how far through the council is with some of that thinking, but if there are projects in the pipeline, I'm sure they would be welcomed as well, a bid from the town council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Page. I think your information is well received. I think we have got projects in mind, but I think probably rather than sharing at this point, it's to bear in mind that there are projects that we're working on. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? Nope. Okay, thank you. Right. Shall we go on to members' questions now? Item 6, members' questions. Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, I suppose it is a question, but it's more of a just seeking, I guess, support from the council in that there are two residents, I guess. Firstly is Father Prasad Kasireddy, who's the new parish priest of St Peter's Biggleswade. I was just wondering on whether the council could sort of write to him, welcome him to the town. Would that be, if that's would seek support? It's just I know that, we have a lot of faith communities in the town. I think it's a nice thing to do to sort of welcome him. If on behalf of the mayor, that's the first thing. And the second thing is if we could also maybe consider writing to one of our recently honoured residents, Janice Buckle, who got the British Empire Medal in the King's Birthday Honours List recently for her services to Biggleswade Badminton. At the very least, I think that should be mentioned in the minutes if members don't feel it's appropriate to write to her, but I think it should be acknowledged when local residents are in the honours list.
Thank you. I'm not. I'm slightly unprepared on this, Councillor Woodhead. So, given that it's not something we've done previously necessarily, I think probably going to take a bit of advice on that. But I don't. I'm not sensing there's any dissent around the room for either of those. So I'm seeing sort of nods of heads, I think. So perhaps that's deemed to be acceptable. Okay, Councillor Barrett.
Can I just ask that we check there are the similar sorts of things as well, so we don't just make an exception.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Nope. Okay, so I'm going to move on to minutes then. So the minutes of the Town Council meeting on the 11th of June. So we're on page 9 of your pack. So firstly, for accuracy, on page 9. Okay, page 10. Councillor Agnew.
First paragraph on page 10, second line, school today. Today should be removed because the talk was about 10th of May.
Yep.
And in the same page, last paragraph, Councillor Alban added the congratulations. I think were also needed. That's just English grammar.
Okay. Thank you. We'll note that and then make some appropriate amendments. Accuracy on page 11. Page 12, Councillor Agnew.
I was reading the notes this time. On the paragraph about big theatre, the third bullet point, supporting the town as a whole. I think it meant the theatre. Probably, I'm not sure. Yeah. Do you think it's the town?
My recollection, because I think I made this point, was that we need to support all not businesses, but all organisations in the town and use that our website and means. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we'll leave that minute as it is then. Next one, anything on? Go on, Councillor Agnew.
The members resolved the following. Write to Central Bedfordshire Council asking that the issues relating to the footpath or the options going forward are illegal. Perhaps illegal.
You're quite right. Thank you. Dear, oh dear. Right, okay. Any more? On page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. And page 18. Councillor Strong.
Yeah, correction there, at the top of page 18, I left before the planning update was given. That should be noted, please.
Yep. Okay, Catherine, you got that? Lovely, thank you. Subject to those amendments, happy for me to sign those off in due course. Oh, okay, thank you. Next item then, we're now going back to matters arising. So we'll go back to page 9. So matter arising on page 9 of the pack. Page 10. Page 11. Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, so the item about the big theatre, sort of we looked to we resolved the possibility of adding them to our website, and I did have a quick look on the website and couldn't see anything immediately. I don't know if that had happened or what. If there's an update on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Tarrant?
that piece of work hasn't been completed as yet, but we'll make sure that it's done.
Okay. We'll follow that up with make sure it's on the matters arising from the matters arising to ensure it happens for next month. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Go on.
I've got another one. The path along by Shortmead House. Did we write to Central Beds Council, and have we had a response?
Mr. Tarrant?
Yes, we did write, but we haven't had a response. No.
Are we able to chase that up? Yeah.
So
Thank
again,
you. Thank you very
matters
much.
arising on the matters arising. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Any more on page 11? No. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. And page 18. Okay. Thank you. Right, so we'll move then on to item 9, items for consideration. So the first item for consideration is the policy review. Mr. Tarrant, are you introducing?
Okay. Thank you. So I've tried to summarize what feels like quite a significant number of policies that need to be reflected upon in the current calendar year. And I've tried to colour code them by levels of importance and significance to the council, with red being the highest, amber being middle, and green being less so. Because of the volume of work that needs to be done, I've spoken to the mayor and deputy mayor to try and get some sense about how we might move forward in trying to plan a work program associated with this. And what I'm suggesting is that for those more significant strategies which are highlighted in red, for instance, financial regulations, standing orders, delegated powers, etc., that those items could be picked up by the clerk and the mayor and the deputy mayor of the council to try and work together to come to a view on what a draft might look like before going direct to council. In some of those items, of course, like standing orders, we can't do that. We need to give proper consideration of time before moving on and going into detail. For those items that are of less significance, then again, I've suggested that key officers work with the chairman and or deputy chairman of the relevant committee, that then having put together a draft document, that then go back to the committee for consideration. The committee then sign that off, and then it then goes to council for absolute sign-off. I guess my main concern connected to all of this is that there is an array of work to be done, and I was trying to find some middle ground with the chair and deputy chair to try and get the work done. What I've also done is I've postulated about when there's a timeline here connected to things and when it might naturally come to the relevant committee. One of the key things I've been trying to get across is that perhaps to encourage some sort of collegiate working, some joint working, and that perhaps we can try and get some sense about what a new draft might look like and work together with councillors. Thank you.
In fact, I might just follow on from that. And Councillor Barrett and I did sit down with Peter, and we did discuss the various options and ways forward. And this sort of approach felt to be sort of the most appropriate. However, I'm happy to take thoughts from members. And there may be some things around approach that you might want to review, you might not be happy with, but also some of the dates may need a little bit of flexing given the nature of them. And I think from my point of view as well, there's certain ones that may well, although within here might sit with the mayor and deputy or the chair of the committees, I think it's within the, should be within the, how can I word it? So it doesn't just necessarily mean it only is those two people. I think if there are documentation and there's someone that perhaps is appropriate to consider, or it could be wider if it's deemed to be appropriate. So if you're the chair of TCM, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can take advice from others if you felt it was appropriate. That's my personal view on it. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the approach we go down. So I'm going to open up. Councillor Alwyn.
I think it's important that, as in the recommendations, that the changes are tracked so that we can see what changes happen.
Absolutely.
And when, whether it's in consultation with the chairs and mayors and so on, or officers' recommendations or whatever. But I just wondered, these will be routine reviews, either yearly or biennial or whatever. But there may be issues that arise outside of that timescale. I just want to be assured that we can deal with that and bring that to the appropriate committee, yes, if necessary.
Peter.
Yes, I think, I mean, this might be a kind of perfect world, what I've tried to describe, but there are bound to be instances where legislation changes or something of significant arises where we actually have to review a policy outside of the standardized format I'm suggesting. What I'm also trying to put down here, though, is I think in the past, we've perhaps reviewed policies more regularly than we might necessarily be a sensible thing to do. And I've tried to make this a more logical approach to things so that we don't get into a situation that we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Agnew, then Councillor Strong.
Just wanted to clarify with Mr. Clark, if we follow your logic of color coding, the red signifies key documentation that will go directly to the council. So then I propose recolor the number 6 of financial regulations as well as number 15, risk management policy, because those were to be reviewed by council. And also equally wondering about the date, 13th of August for financial regulations. Is that what we agreed that we're gonna pick up on in August? Because we also might need to consider the budgeting.
So since writing this, we've actually progressed financial regulations at a kind of faster speed than the other policies, and working with both of you, and particularly with Councillor Strawn, I think we're in a favourable position where we feel like we've got a kind of 95% completed document. But obviously, my colleague, the head of finance, then reached out to other members just to try and get some additional feedback before we put it back to finance and general purposes. So we're in a strong position with that particular policy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Yes, my comments come to Appendix A and some clarification, because some of the expected committee dates are 5 months ago. They've got February 2024 rather than 2025. So that, I think, is just a typographical error. But particularly on the colour coding, I think a bit of clarification, because we've got red, green and amber, and we've got reference to yearly, 3 yearly and 4 yearly in the main report. But on the actual key to the policy, it refers to them as actually whether they're going to council, committee, etc. And I'm not sure that they actually match entirely the same. So I think that may need a little bit of looking at just to clarify what they are. But at the moment, they actually fit exactly together when they may not, in practical terms, be intended to. So perhaps that could be looked at, please.
Happy with that? So, I mean, absolutely fair point. Councillor Russell.
I'm concerned about item 17, the standing orders, and the fact that we've got the dates of August and September. Obviously, with standing orders, they have to come to council and we don't decide anything and they get deferred to the next council. And we should have a chance of a working group between those 2 dates if people want to consider this. And I also think that it's inappropriate to bring the standing orders for the first time in August. I think it should be September and October. A lot of people are away during August, and I don't think it's appropriate to do it then, so that the working group would then be in September rather than in August. So that I think standing orders are too important to relegate, if you see what I mean. So I'd like to propose that it's September 24 and October 24. And I fully agree that the risk management policy and the financial regulation should be read.
So it's a proposal on and for change from Councillor Russell. Do I have a second for that proposed change? Any, all those in favour of that, please show. Okay, fine. So got that one. Come on, Councillor.
Thank you. And so just to sort of following on from what Councillor Russell said about working groups, a couple of these leapt out of me have maybe been appropriate for the capital asset working group, or maybe a different working group, which was the allotment policies and potentially the football pitch booking. They're obviously, you know, not sort of big financial policies, but they have the they can affect a lot of residents, and so I think it would be appropriate if we could have as many councillors inputting on that before they come to a committee as possible. And obviously, I've got an interest as an allotment holder.
Okay. So is your proposal that it's
my proposal would be that we consider working groups for any appropriate policy. Is that?
It's not as specific perhaps as I would like,
Okay.
Councillor Skilton, given that any one of these could be. So
policies 2, 3 and 9 be considered at the capital asset working group prior to coming to a committee.
do I have a second for Councillor Skilton's proposal? It doesn't look as though there's any support for that, Councillor Skilton. Okay, so from what I'm getting from that is members seem to be quite happy with the approach of, in the first instance, the majority of these being dealt with by the mayor and deputies prior to them coming to the relevant committee, and then prior to then coming to council, subject to the change in standing orders date and the and financial regulations coming in as agreed or as planned here. Is that sort of this is what I'm sensing? Is that am I correct in that? Okay, go on, Peter.
I just wanted to reiterate that obviously the vast proportion of policies would come to the relevant chair and deputy chair of the relevant committee. It's only a small portion of this that would be dealt with by the mayor and deputy mayor.
Yep. So, given that we've had a sort of agreement, I also have a proposal then that we accept everything as agreed, apart from the change in date that Councillor Russell proposed. All those, do I have a second for that then, please? All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Well done. Okay, I'm going to move then on to the next item, which is the item 9B, the communication strategy. This particular strategy, communication strategy, there's a huge amount of work, time and effort gone into this particular document. There's been various iterations of a communication strategy that I've certainly seen as mayor, and myself and the deputy mayor have actually seen a sort of draft version of this prior to it coming to onto the agenda. And I think having looked at this in a little bit more detail, although it's a great piece of work, I think there may be some benefit for having this reviewed in a little bit more detail outside of this particular room on this particular evening. My personal view. But there is, because it's a good piece of work, we want to make sure that we've got a really decent strategy. So that's my personal view, but I'm happy to take views from elsewhere. Councillor Russell.
I think it's right that it needs further review, and we also need to consider whether it conflicts with any of our existing policies. I believe we do have a social media policy, for instance. So I think the whole thing needs to be brought together in a single communications policy. And I think it would be a good idea if we did have a one meeting working group to go through this with the relevant officers, please.
Okay. Councillor Barrett.
I literally said something.
So I'm sensing proposal and seconder. Are you happy to propose, Councillor Barrett? Councillor Russell, second that approach in terms of having a working group? So it's the same. So it's proposed and second. So, yeah. Your second, yeah. So all those in favour of that approach, then please show. So That's unanimous. And so I think that the next thing, did you not, I beg your pardon, Councillor Alban. Are you against that approach? My apologies.
I did have a question.
It's a bit, please ask your question
Yeah,
anyway.
okay. Well, actually, it's not a question, it's an opinion really. So in the recommendations here, so some of the reviewing will be done, the reviewing of the policy will be done by the working group, but there are some recommendations as well.
Yep.
And one of those is investing in the town council's website and social media platforms through paid advertising. I'm certainly not a fan of advertising on a town council website, and I don't see how advertising can be used in social media. So, not advertising that the town council will benefit from. So I'm a little confused about that, but I'm certainly not in favour of advertising on the town council website.
Okay.
Because I'm not keen on advertising, but the other is how would we vet these advertisers and ensure that what advertisers are there on the town council website don't in any way sort of pose a threat to the town council's reputation.
So part of the reason I think it's important that we review the strategy in sufficient detail is so that we're able to alleviate members' concerns around that and identify whether there are issues within the strategy that maybe sort of identify those sort of concerns. So, I mean, rather than go in any more detail this evening, I think probably the appropriate thing to do is to refer it to the working group to go through this. I think probably at this point is to identify who might be interested in joining the working group as well to be to go through the document in a little more detail. So do I have any members here that are keen to do that? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So Councillor Woodhead, Councillor Alban, Councillor Skilton, Councillor Russell. And I understand Councillor Knight was also keen to do so. So that's
yes, please.
Hello, Councillor Knight. I didn't see you there. So that's 5. I think that gives us enough members. Councillor Barrett. Of course. Yeah. So Councillor Barrett, Councillor Knight, Councillor Russell, Councillor Skilton, Councillor Alban and Councillor Woodhead in the working group. Okay, thank you. So move on to then the next item on the agenda then please, which is the council chamber report. Peter, did you, and Mr. Barrett, did you wish to introduce? Okay.
The council chamber improvement project was initiated last year. There are a number of reasons for this. So it was noted that we needed to replace the equipment in the chamber that we had on loan from Node. Members wish to see additional cameras that could be placed in the chamber to focus in on different people as they spoke. Also improvements to the sound quality during meetings in the chamber, as well as repainting of the chamber and placing either blinds or curtains to block out the glare of the sun. During this, it was identified that the training room does not have the technology for Teams meetings. As a result, we put together a programme of work which is over 4 different stages. So stage 1 we've already completed, which is the replacing the equipment on loan from Node and the installation of cameras. And then stage 2 would be installing the remainder of the IT in the chamber, so the speakers, cabinets and the training room equipment. Then stage 3 would be painting the chamber, and then stage 4 would be installing either the curtains or blinds, whichever is decided. So stages 2 to 4 is what is included within the proposal and for approval tonight, and if approved will complete this project.
Okay, Mr. Barrett.
I will share in terms of the funding options. There are 3 options, please. So in terms of the total cost, which is the 12,858, first option is members agree is the sources from the capital reserve with a current budget of about 86,000. And option 2 will be to allow the IT budget to overspend, and officers will establish savings within the budget and latest by at the year end, which is we're talking about March 2025. And the third option is to build a budget growth for 12,853 for this to be included in the 2025-2026. So this option would lead to a delay of implementing the project.
Mr. Tarrant?
Thank you. So I just wanted to highlight just briefly what sits on top of my two colleagues' explanations. So I guess the first thing I wanted to say was, if we go back several weeks now, members highlighted to officers how important it was to have 2 rooms that were suitably set up to allow meetings to be completed in a modern, progressive way, and that actually all the kit worked. And I remember going back several weeks ago where we tried to have a conversation about our vision for the council, and some of the tech let us down, which was unfortunate because some members were only able to join from home. So it's really important that we've got potentially 2 areas where actually the tech is totally reliable and enables modern, progressive working. I think the other thing to say here is it's right to say that the solutions that are described in this report have not, in their depth, been shared with members until our conversations today. And it may be that when members look at the detail associated with this, that some of the solutions are not compelling. We did have a conversation with the director of Node associated with this, and trying to express the sense of what our business requirements were. And I say, it may be that you require further deliberation before going forward associated with this. But just to share a kind of really key example, 34 minutes ago when we started the meeting, unfortunately our Wi-Fi dropped off. We have a Wi-Fi box that sits behind you that is the end of its natural life. And there's certain elements connected to the chamber that just basically need to be done to make sure that we have a progressive situation. Lastly, connected to this, there was some thoughts that we would make the training room a kind of Teams room. But again, it depends on what members' priorities are connected to this. So hopefully we can try and get a sense about how we can move forward and make this sustainable. I'm very, very thoughtful though that none of this work effectively is budgeted. So there are some difficult decisions to be made. Thank you.
Okay, members' comments, please. Councillor Alban?
I've got some questions on the training room. So option 1 and option 2, which is on page 4 of the quote, page 39 of the pack. So in both option 1 and option 2, a wireless tabletop mic pod and charger is mentioned, but in option 1 there's only 1 required, and option 2 there's 2 required. But the price, it looks like exactly the same item from my reading, but the price varies between the 2 quotes. It's 214 in option 1 for quantity of 1, and £224.70 each in option 2. Is that, am I correct in assuming that they're the same kind of item? They look like it from the description. And I have another question afterwards.
They would achieve pretty much the same thing. I think the main difference is the floor stand. That's a floor stand for the meeting board. That's the only thing I can, yeah, there's different between the 2.
Okay, my second question is, so in option 1, there's a floor stand mentioned for the meeting board. So basically putting the meeting board on wheels. What advantages is that to us? Is it likely to be wheeled elsewhere? Because that's a reasonable portion of the quote. And if it's not going to be actually used elsewhere, is it necessary? And if it wasn't necessary, that would bring the prices down to very similar for each option.
Okay, Do I have an answer for that, or is that it?
Floor stand would remain in the training room. It wouldn't be used in any other space.
Thank you. Councillor Gilcher?
So go back to Councillor Alban's comment on the two products, one 214, one 224.70. I don't think that question was answered. So they're both the same product. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Alban, he's asking why the price are different because it's the same item. It's relevant to the floor stand, not the total quote, but that individual item, the E-Link wireless tabletop mic, is the same item in option 2, but dearer in option 2 than option 1.
We can take that. Go on, Peter.
Yeah, I think obviously we'll take that question away and we'll discuss it with the people who've supplied the solution. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Barrett? Councillor Strawn then after that.
Microphone's on. Yes. I agree that we need to do some amendments, some changes, some upgrades to everything. A little bit concerned about how many members have been involved so far in conversations with this. It says members in the document. And I'm not 100% happy that we're spending £12,000 in this sort of situation. And I'm not sure I've got the information I need to know about the benefits of these upgrades to be able to make a decision tonight. So I know we've been talking about working groups and things like that already, but it feels to me as if there needs to be a little bit more work on this document in terms of what we might want to see as a priority in 24 and what we might want to defer to 25. So it feels to me as if this is another item that we might wish to defer, to have an opportunity of a working group perhaps to come together and
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Strawn?
I think the idea of having a working group to look into this with people who know what they're talking about, because I haven't got a clue about the technology on this, so I'm quite happy to be open up on that, but I don't understand some of the figures, particularly the point raised by Councillor Alban. That is, to my mind, absolutely ridiculous. And I'd also been hoping that we might have actually had some opportunities to some alternative quotations on this and proposals, because I don't know what about the equipment or anything else, but it just seems to me to be a lot of money, and I think we need to make sure we're getting it quite right. We've had issues with the equipment in this chamber for many years now, and I think we need to make sure we get it quite right. And I think a second or third opinion with an opportunity to quoting it, even though we might theoretically be able to do it without breaching standing orders or financial regulations, I think that would be sensible.
Just a second, Peter. Councillor Agnew?
I echo your thoughts about technology, but technology aside, the 2 points regarding the plans, I would like to propose immediately considering is the options, because if I recollect, in summertime when we work in this room, that has been quite an issue every time we have sunshine there. So hopefully that will appear in the new format of the renewed report and postings.
Okay, I've got some views on this as well, so I'll share those. In terms of the, Helen, your introduction referred to stages 2, 3 and 4. It may be that I've missed the documented stages, so, but I think it would be helpful for members to understand what stages 2, 3 and 4 are in a report. I think it's important that we also incorporate the whole costs within the report. So if we're suggesting including the blinds, we've got a real top line, a real detailed number. So if we're looking to spend £12,000 plus the £5,000 or whatever the number is, that we've got some clarity around what investment we're looking to make into the chamber. You know, we do need to make improvements and we do need to be professional, but we also need to be mindful of what we're spending to enhance our environment in a way. So with that in mind, I think we've had some ideas here, but I think it's important that we're very careful on what we spend. Peter.
So listening to members' observations connected to this, perhaps a better approach is what members have started to talk about, which is go back with the Merck working group, actually convert this into a specification. Yeah, get the specification agreed by members as the base specification, and then go out to arrange at least 3 providers to get a sense of what the different costs might be associated with this, outside of our existing arrangements with our nominated IT provider.
Councillor Alba.
Yeah, obviously there are options here, but there are some items which are necessary to carry out anyway, like the Wi-Fi upgrade. So I think we need to bear that in mind. There might be some things that we want to strike out, but there are some things that are essential.
In relation to the Wi-Fi, Peter, and perhaps you can answer this question. So if that's something that is deemed to be more essential, is that something that could be done in isolation, given that you've got cabling? Would the cabling need to be done separately, or could for example, that element be dealt with straight away without any additional impact?
It could be dealt with as you just described. It can be treated as an urgent item, and as I say, the box is sitting in front of us now, and was faulty earlier on today. So it would be nice at least to get that remedied. The box we're advised, is now effectively out of natural business use. So that might be treated separately if members deemed it appropriate.
Councillor Russell.
So can I make a formal proposal that we go ahead with the replacement of the Wi-Fi box, and we also go ahead with £1,000 for blinds on those windows as a matter of urgency, because it's not very nice sitting here when the sun's out. Today it's fine, unfortunately, but on a normal summer's evening. So I'd like to propose we go ahead with those 2 things, the Wi-Fi and the £1,000 for the blinds up there.
Okay, have seconded that. So in terms of the other elements regarding how we deal with that, there's been suggestions that we might convene a working group to deal with that, and also looking at alternative quotes in relation to that. Are you happy to have that as an amendment to your original proposal, Councillor Russell?
I'm happy to add those 2 items, yes.
And Councillor Thomas, yeah?
Yeah, and can I say it might be a good idea if we get all the rest done together, if it's whatever it's going to be, just as a package rather than do it piecemeal.
Okay, so
do the essentials now and get the rest done.
So proposal to do the blinds over this side, to do Wi-Fi, convene a working group. Go on, Councillor Gilcher.
Sorry, it's fair. I totally agree with that. I think it's a good proposal. I'm just reading this. Do we need to decide where that money is going to be coming from in that proposal?
Is that a requirement, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, these are relatively smaller sums that we can probably absorb within the natural IT budget. It was, bearing in mind that we were talking about nearly 12k, that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
Both of those are relatively small and significant, so it could be absorbable. Yeah.
Okay, so the proposal is blinds, Wi-Fi, convening a working group, proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Can I just ask who might be part of that working group?
Yeah, so that's the next stage. So who wishes to be part of this working group? So I've got Councillor Thomas, Councillor Skilton, Councillor Albone, Councillor Barrett.
I was just going to suggest Councillor Knight.
Councillor Knight, did you wish to join that? Are you still there?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
I think I'd like to be involved in that as well. So, Catherine, did you get those? Okay, good. Okay, right. Well done. Shall we move on to the next item then? Thank you. Planning applications. So we've got 10A, 24 Shuttleworth Court, installation of amateur radio mast, 11.5 metres. Comments, please.
Subject to neighbours.
Okay, go on, Councillor Barrett.
Yes, I looked at this in detail and then decided I didn't have enough knowledge about this. I looked, and other masts of similar types have been installed in similar locations. So I absolutely agree and second that subject to neighbour.
I think the other thing is what it does say is that it's I think it's 6.5 metre and 11.5 metres when it's fully extended. So it's not going to be all the time. So when it is at 11.5 metres, that's bigger than a house. But so what we're saying is no objection, subject to neighbours. Happy with that approach? Okay, thank you. Next one is 62 Windermere Drive, single story front extension. Comments?
It's basically they're just putting a downstairs toilet in at the front. I would say same, subject to neighbours.
So we're happy with that approach? Yep. 154 Hitchin Street, permission of in principle of erection of two bedroom houses with associated landscaping, etc. Councillor Alban.
I think there are issues with this, and there's been quite a lot highlighted in officers' reports. The ecologist report says that the site appears to have been pre-cleared, which is, I think they described it as a disappointment. So it's already been cleared of vegetation. Some trees have been removed. The tree and landscape officer is not happy with that, and so they need to be replaced. Because it's a permission in principle application, you don't have to specify what the biodiversity gains might be, but the likelihood is, if there is an application following this, they will be very, very small or even negative. It needs to be a 10% biodiversity gain apparently. Technical officer is reporting that there's basically issues with refuse vehicles getting there. The access will be very, very narrow. So there's no way you'd get refuse vehicle in there, which will lead to problems with bins on the pathway in Hitchin Street, which will be a problem. But the biggest issue is the access to the site, and the highways officer is reporting that he can't even he wouldn't support the application in principle. The visibility displays would that are necessary would involve taking in third-party properties. So he can't see that would work at all. It's quite a small site, and there are two dwellings there. So I think we should object to this. I propose that we object to this. I think it's overdevelopment. I don't think we can talk about potential loss of biodiversity because that doesn't apply in the application in principle. But the biggest problem is highways access. So I think we can object on those grounds. So I propose we object.
So it's a proposal to object on the grounds of overdevelopment highways access. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Skilton, Councillor Thomas. Anyone else wish to comment? Councillor Strawn?
Yes, I think this may be one of the last opportunities we will get to object to development of this kind of nature, because I think planning policy may well be changing in the very near future, which will make this automatically granted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. Thanks for your input on that. So all those in favour then of the objection, please show. I think that is unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Next time, sorry, one of the things I should mention in relation to, we'll come to that in a second. So we're on 10D, land at Springfield Bungalow and Stratton Farm Cottages, variation of condition, etc. Councillor Russell.
We've discussed this previously, and we've also had representatives of Tritax, because this is Tritax Symmetry here. So it's a formality. We know that they have to change the layout because they've got a client, Warburtons, who wants something slightly different. So there's less floor space going to be. The section 106, which we were really interested in, remains unchanged, and that's the really important thing. So I don't think there's any problem with this. I don't know why this 13th of the 12th is put there, because that was before we then changed our mind, and I actually went to DMC to speak in favour of the application when it came to council.
What I should have done before I introduced this item, actually, there was an email that did come to two members, and I can read out the previous resolution so that we're clear. I apologise for not doing that in advance. So, previous resolution on the 11th of April was the Town Council agreed to formally discuss the application again following a presentation by Tom Leeming. The Town Council expressed the view that the contents of the letter by Mr Leeming satisfied their concerns. Therefore, the Town Council is prepared to remove the objection in this application. The Town Council also agreed that Councillor Russell would be attending the next DMC to provide the views of the Town Council on this matter. Pretty much what Councillor Russell just actually said. Well done, thank you. Given that I'm speaking on this one, I also then should make comment on St Andrew's Lower School. So this relates to 10G, which we will go on to. The resolution in relation to that item was the Town Council start again. So the resolution related to the other site, so related to St Andrews West site, rather than the St Andrews East site that this particular planning application relates to. So, so originally, when the Town Council dealt with this objection on the 12th of March, the Town Council had no objection to this application, subject to consultation with neighbours and consideration of their comments. However, the council would like to draw CBC officers' attention to the following points. The temporary nature of the building car park should be no longer than 10 years. So that, when it comes to that, be item 10G. So I think there's one other, but we'll deal with that shortly. So going back to 10D, we have.
Shall I just propose
summarize
that we approve it?
Approve it. Yep. Seconded. All those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to 10E, which is 12 Stratton Way, erection of two-storey side extension. Comments, please. Oh, subject to neighbours.
Subject to neighbours.
Happy with that? Yep. Okay. Next one then, 10F, 190 Drove Road, direction of single-storey rear and side extension, demolition of carport with gated front, removal former conservatory base and associated works. Subject to neighbours? Yep. Okay. Now we are on to 10G, which is the relation to St Andrews Lower School, Bantock Way. Installation of two temporary modular classrooms, etc. You've seen what our no objection previously. Any other comments? Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I guess we shouldn't object to this, but there is important archaeology under there, which I would hope would be investigated and saved as necessary. It was apparently left in situ from when the original development went ahead. So it's important. It's Iron Age and Roman remains probably under there. So as long as the archaeology is sorted out to the satisfaction of the archaeology officers, then I think we should be happy.
So you're proposing no objection subject to the satisfaction of the archaeology officers?
Yeah.
Second of that approach? All those in favour then please show. Okay, that's unanimous. Well done. Thank you. I'm going to move on to then 10H Warehouse Ponds Lane, new roof construction with increase in ridge and eave height, new conservation roof lights and solar panels.
Again, it's subject to neighbours, really.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be enhancing and make it more user friendly, actually. So, yeah. So happy with that approach then? Yeah, I see nods. Okay. So we move then on to Lawnside. Now I've got something in relation to Lawnside here. So something else I need to read out. There is a communication, I think, that came out from residents in relation to this, but I think members will have seen the communication. I think I'm minded with this particular application that we need to very carefully consider it as a planning application. And there's lots of views on this around sort of the decision to extend Lawnside Lower School, and Central Beds have made a decision with this particular site, and we're dealing with a planning application. That said, happy to take comments on it, but be mindful that it's a planning application we're dealing with, please. So, Councillor Russell.
Well, just to say that the previous resolution was for the temporary installation.
Yep.
And now we have before us the permanent solution for the site. So it is different, but I would say that we should still object. You know, I rather fear it will go ahead, but I think we should object for various reasons. The major ones being it is still overdevelopment, and there are great problems with access to the site, because we are talking about 40% increase in pupils, and therefore a commensurate increase in teaching staff and other staff. So it's overdevelopment. One of the points I'd like to make is that the reason there's a multi-use games area there is simply because they're taking up so much of the playing field. If they didn't put in a multi-use games area, then they wouldn't get planning permission because they would be reducing the playing field. But the Muga for children that age is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to be out in the fresh air on the grass and whatever. And they're taking up an awful lot of space to be able to do what they want to do. I think there are still the big problems with safety that we talked about before. It was back to 2014, wasn't it, when the Lawnside closed the access to the avenue, and it still applies that it's dangerous, even if they put the footpath down that they're talking about, because they're talking about a footpath on the eastern side of the avenue. And then they're talking about on the other side where the footpath is at the moment, that they actually want to make it into a cycleway. So they're talking about allowing cycles to use what is quite narrow, although they want to widen it. And I was horrified when I looked at the transport consultants report. These are transport consultants who have been appointed not by Central Beds, but by the contractors who are supposed to be going to do the work. And it's so badly done. There are so many flaws in it that, I mean, comments like the access from the avenue has not been in general use for some time. Well, we know why. I've just explained why again. They're not acknowledging that there are safety issues. I had to laugh because they've been looking at places where people can park to then walk their children the last bit to school. So they're calling it park and stride. And they've written to Asda to ask if they might be able to use Asda car park. Well, really? Are people going to park in Asda car park to walk to Lawnside School? And one of the other places they looked at was the Bowls Club on Drove Road. They haven't written to the town council about that, but then they decided it probably wasn't an appropriate site anyway. I mean, I would have liked a lot more time to look at this because I didn't realise it was on the agenda until we got the papers. I mean, why would I? But I really do think that we have to go back to our previous objections and pick out all the issues that are relevant to this one in terms of overdevelopment and the access, and that some of the solutions proposed are just not where they need to be. I'm unable to articulate more than that at the moment because I just haven't had the time to look at it in detail. So I apologise about that. But a lot, I mean, they're talking about people using buses, and they talk in the transport consultation about, you know, a bus that stops at the bottom of London roads. You know, well, yes, but that's not relevant for this. They talk about people being able to come by rail to the train station and walk to, I mean, the whole thing is cloud cuckoo land. It just makes me very angry that something as important as this is being dealt with in this way. And one other sentence that I picked out that really made me angry. The school also has pedestrian and vehicular access from the avenue, a private road belonging to CBC. Well, we know what's happened there, don't we? And that's really an insult. So I'll stop there because I'm sure other colleagues can add other objections to this.
Okay, I'm going to go Councillor Alban. Was it Councillor Alban? Did you have your hand up?
I kind of have not.
I thought you did. I apologise. I thought you'd indicated. If not, then I'll go to Councillor Woodhead.
I'll go first, and maybe Councillor Alban might. I don't know if he's got a point to come back later to. Excuse me. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Councillor Russell just said. I think we should oppose it on the grounds of overdevelopment. And for all the reasons that have just been outlined. I mean, there is a broader point around the lack of consultation over this. I mean, outside the broader Schools for the Future project, I think this particular project has been handled very badly by Central Beds and by the school. And it's all been almost done a bit by fiat rather than by consultation and by bringing people along. And I know there's still lots of residents, particularly on the avenue, who are very upset with the way all this has been done. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there. But the thing that I still never get answers to in terms of Central Beds and the school is that the school itself has a deliberately small catchment area, probably within half a mile, and yet they're coming out with suggestions of, you know, using Asda and this, that, and the other. Most of the kids all live within half a mile of the school. You don't even need to do all those things. So I question where they're getting their advice from. But I think as far as the planning issue is concerned, yes, we should oppose it, and then we'll kind of see where we go. Yeah, I've said enough.
Did you wish to speak, Councillor Alban?
Yeah, I think, yeah, obviously the sentiment is to oppose this. I just kind of worry that we might lose our real objections to it if we just blanket wise oppose it. I mean, I think it's really important to raise the issue of access from the avenue and stress that, because we all know what will happen. Apart from the safety issue, there'll be chaos, absolute chaos, and the residents of the avenue will be particularly affected. But the whole of the book, you can imagine what will happen, and with a 40% uplift in pupils as well. Yeah. So if you're driving along the Bourke and you can't get a parking place in the car park in the first bit, you're just going to go to the avenue, aren't you? And try and park there. So it is going to cause absolute chaos as well as be dangerous. So I don't know how we can word this, but maybe we shouldn't object, but raise out the issues that we have with this. But I'll go along with what other people will.
Thank you, Councillor Strong.
Yes, I note that in our previous resolution, officers were writing to CBC. Have we had responses to those letters, and what were those responses? Because I think we need to object to this on the grounds already suggested. I don't think it's any good saying we don't object to it. I think we must object. But I'd quite like to know what CBC has responded to our officers' correspondence, if at all.
Mr. Tarrant?
There is no response.
Okay. Councillor Skilton was first.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just sort of obviously transport and access is something that I think we should object, and I think we should transport is one of the grounds for that, as well as overdevelopment. But sort of CBC has certain methods that they employ to help people not use their cars to get their kids to school, and none of the suggestions in this application are any of their standard methods, and they've already introduced what you might call a school street, although they've done it in a sort of a half-baked way, with the introduction of the no access at pick up and drop off times in Lawnside, which I think that was approved, but I don't think it's been installed yet, and that will actually just increase people using Drove Road and the avenue. If that goes ahead without any other mitigating measures. So I just think members should consider, whatever the outcome of this application, that we need to make sure that proper traffic management is put in to mitigate for more cars coming down residential streets.
Okay, I'm going to go with Councillor Barrett, then Councillor Russell.
I think we've already agreed what we're going to do. We're going to object, subject to voting on that. And the items that we would object to are already here, written out and laid out for us. I wrote down nothing changes. I've read lots of things, but nothing's changed. But I do think the residents that have made comments already by email to council, we should take heed of them and make sure that we give them the right advice so they know how they can object as well. Put it up onto the website, because they're obviously emailing us, not necessarily realising whether should be doing it.
Actually, the residents concerned are aware of the process, and they have raised their observations with CBC Direct.
So I think I'm trying to call an end to this to a certain extent, to say that we should be, the proposal would be that we object to this.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Russell, then Councillor Strawn again.
Can I ask when the closing date for this is? Are we up against a deadline?
I don't have to. I'm not sure. Do you have a date? What?
So would council allow Councillor Woodhead and I to work with the officers to get down the essential points from the last objection, and to just look to see if there are any other things that we should add to this objection on the grounds of both overdevelopment and access? Because Councillor Woodhead and I have had a lot of communications with residents, which we can make sure that are raised. I don't know, it's an unusual proposal, but if council wants to object on the grounds of overdevelopment and the access, then, we could work with officers to get the final letter to Central Bedfordshire sorted.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Strawn?
I think that would actually make sense in view of the information, having seen the residents' comments today. I think that does make sense, but I think we should also be pushing the officers at CBC to respond to our previous correspondence, because quite frankly, there may be grounds there looking at the legal access point of view. I've got reservations over CBC's ownership of the avenue and how that came about, and I'd quite like to know who it's registered in, because normally residents of a house would have half the road in their title somewhere. So I think CBC should be at least giving us the courtesy of a response to a previous matter that was raised, and when we objected, and they just seem to ignore it. They shouldn't be allowed to ignore it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strawn. So just from the chair, I'm in agreement with the approach. One of the things I would really think with Councillor Alban on this, I think we should really emphasise the element of safety, in particular, this element of safety down the avenue. The reason the access gate has been closed down the avenue is because of the safety issue, and that's our primary objection for me. It is overdevelopment, but I think almost to mitigate what I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion, but it's very clear that Central Beds are looking to make sure this happens, and we should be mindful of mitigating the risk to pupils and also to the residents of the avenue. And by actually not allowing access via the avenue, that would force people to walk via the western route. Yes, it's being widened at some point, and also then the northern route, but it does mean that it's safer. And that would be my primary thing. We registered the objection, but I think it's important that bit is the key message. So we have a proposal from Councillor Russell that Councillor Russell and Councillor Woodhead work together to formulate a response to Central Beds. I proposed, seconded. All those in favour of that approach, please show. Any against that approach? Any abstentions? Councillor Gilcher, obviously, yeah. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on then onto item 10J, 2 London Road, the works to treat.
Said a non-pecuniary interest, Mr. Mayor. Do you require me to leave this particular item?
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. Works to a tree and a conservation there. Comments, please. Councillor Barrett.
No objections. I thought this was an excellent suggestion to tidy up the trees, and look like they're doing it in an excellent way.
Yep. Everybody happy with that? Yep. Okay. Thank you. I think 10K will move on. It's in Southdale, not Biggleswade. So we'll move on. Planning application outcomes. So we'll move. Yeah, so we're now on 11A, planning application outcomes. Any comments on the planning application outcomes, please? Councillor Russell.
Just that it's depressing how many things that we object to that just go through. I think there's about 5 on that list, and you wonder, what else we can do. And as somebody said, it's going to get worse.
I think the important thing is that we do object, and where it's appropriate, we object in the right way, and our objections are recorded. I think that's the best we can do. Irrespective of anything else, we've got a responsibility to our residents. So, okay. So are we saying we're noting this particular report? Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the, so we're on item 12, accounts.
Thank you very much. For me, please, there's slight changes to the attachment, so I printed a new copy if I can quickly share it around.
Thank you.
very much. So the usual 4 reports, which are the balance sheet and the detailed income and expenditure and the payment lesson for May, including the direct debit payments for the whole of May, they've all been uploaded on the website and under finance transparency documents. And also the summary of the income and expenditure as well for May has been uploaded on the website already. In terms of projected outcome for May, obviously we only have April and May, but so officers are proposing the break even at the end of the financial year for the 12 months. In terms in terms of information, financial information is still limited at the moment, but officers are proposing a break even. Also, one item which is members or the council has already approved the pitch maintenance and also there has been approval of some commitment towards some professional fees from the general reserves, but officers are doing that or we can in order to generate some savings to offset some of this expenditure. So these are only 2 extraordinary items which are if savings is not if we don't recognize savings elsewhere, it's going to impact on the general reserves. But at the moment there have been few savings across the budget, and officers will continue to do more to make sure that the impact is limited at the end of the financial year. The recommendation is members to please consider and also approve the May report.
Okay, Mr. Tarrant.
Yeah, just to clarify, so obviously members have already deliberated on 2 of the more significant items, and have already we have a resolution of council associated with those 2 large items, and they're sourced from the general reserve. And obviously, as the head of finance has just said, we've effectively got a kind of 2/12 position. Yeah. As we move into June now, we'll begin to get more detail associated, and the profiling will be more sophisticated, and you'll get a better, more informed sense of what the end year picture looks like. But at the moment, based on trends, it looks like a break-even position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Councillor Strachan, did you want to say anything before we move to any other members? No. Okay. Any comments on members, please? So, are you happy to receive the accounts as laid out? Is that a proposal? So can I have a show of hands and that you're happy to receive those accounts? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Well done. We'll move straight on to then item 13, items for information. So we're on UK. Yeah. So UK Shared Prosperity Fund. In over to you, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, to present the report for your information. Not much to add to it, it's not already there. Thank you to Councillor Farage for his earlier comments. Yeah, working with a number of groups to help them progress their applications and just gently nudging them towards the finishing line at the moment, a bit of matchmaking with potential match funders. No real control of whether they get their applications in or not. It's a fairly invisible process from my point of view. Not heavily involved, it's very much CBC's responsibility, but I did want to make sure that there was some strategic steer with some of those applications in Biggleswade.
Okay. Comments, Councillor Skilton. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Are you aware of any local groups that have applied for this? Because I understand the council have written to local sort of voluntary groups and community interest groups that we have sight of. And I just wondered if you had any positive response from any of the groups to say they were going to apply.
I've got a list of about 10 that I've been nudging and working with, but I don't think it'd be much to actually name them or identify them. But they are across the patch and across the sectors in all eligible categories. As I say, it's in the ball is in their court as to whether or not they apply or not, whether they're put off by their paperwork, whether they lack capacity as an organisation, whether they struggle to find the 20% match funding. These are all considerations I have no control over.
Yeah, okay. So are you aware of any groups actually applying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Strawn?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that there's officers are considering submitting a town council application with partners for cricket and football. I wonder whether any consider we are in that, if we can sort of mention that, because a few of us looked at the Biggleswade United ground, and it just strikes me that there may be some opportunities for an application for a grant there in view of what we saw at those premises.
Mr Tarrant?
Yeah, more detailed consideration is obviously being given to the potential projects, and obviously this is an opportunity for the town council to offset its expenditure from other alternative funds, and we're doing that in the process. We'll feed back to members and get their guidance associated with before we make a determination. But I think the good thing I wanted to say on Ian's behalf really was, and Councillor Fate has already highlighted this, there's this kind of there's a clear intervention here that the town council is doing, and it's acting as a voice, and it's encouraging third sector, and it's helping and supporting as best it can associated with this. But as Ian says, one of the key things for anybody who applies is A, does it meet the criteria, but B, where do you find that match funding from? But yeah, we've already had internal conversations connected to that, and we'll brief you at another time.
That's strong.
If I can just come back, we've got about 10 days to get it done, which is my concern. There is actually, there's a very short time span to do this.
Noted. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this one? Okay, we'll note the report and obviously the comments that have been made. Thank you. Next item then is the proposed temporary road closure of Langford Road. Any comments? No. Note it. Same thing, Havelock Road, Councillor Strawn.
Yes, I've just got concerns over Havelock Road and Lawrence Road because they seem to be closing at the same time, or at least potentially closing under the order. I think the comment could hopefully go back that it would be wrong to have them both done at exactly the same time because it will cause considerable difficulties locally, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Alban?
I think it might be advantageous for them to be both closed at the same time because it's in similar locations and they'll get the work done without two closures.
So we've got two points of view on that one. I think we can note that we're looking to minimise then the disruption to residents and to optimise the use of the roads so that it doesn't affect people too much. I think that's probably the most we can do, really. I think that there's no, because there are two different views on it, or more than two different views. So go on. I think we should write and acknowledge the fact that these are happening, but minimise the risk. Go on.
Can I just add something to that, Mr. Mayor? Relating to our earlier conversation about Lawnside School, can we say we're very pleased it's taking place in the school holidays as well, as in addition to this letter? Because I think at least there's some acknowledgement that if it wasn't taking place in school holidays, it'd be complete carnage down there. So at least reflect on something positive. So that can be added.
I think we can do that. Very good. Okay, next one then is Mulberry Close and Beach Avenue, Sycamore Close. Councillor Skilton.
Hi, yes, I'm just aware from conversations I've had with residents that there have been some informal conversations between residents and CBC about parking here when these are happening, because this will affect the parking. And I understand CBC officers have indicated to residents that they'll be able to park on the grass verges along Wiltshire's Road, which has caused concern from residents down there. And if that is the case, can CBC ensure that any verges that are damaged due to resident parking, they're put back to a good state?
I'm just thinking, Wiltshire's Road, is this are you talking in sort of parallel to the railway? or am I missing the point?
It may actually be Beach Avenue.
If it's the road parallel to the rail, I think it probably is Ash Road, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Apologies,
but it depends where it is, actually. So,
Yes, yeah, but that verge along the railway line,
Right,
that's the
okay.
bit I'm talking about.
Right, I understood. Right, okay. So again, we just need to be careful that if that's what central beds are advising, then we need some clarity on it.
It's residents have raised it with me that they've had conversation with officers that might be an option.
It's just, yeah, given the sort of nature of the traffic down there, it's, well, we'll see. Okay. So we're noting it other than that, yeah.
Well, actually, I've got a proposal that we write to central beds and ensure that verges are protected or put back as needed.
Okay. Do I have a second of that approach? Everyone happy? Go on, Councillor Strong.
So it should be at the expense of the water company that's doing the work, not at the local councils.
Okay. So, but we're happy to write to central beds to ensure that the verges are protected, and if there is any damage, it's at the expense of the water company, not the authority. Yeah. Okay. Next one then, A1 Roadworks progress sign feedback. Any comments on this one, Councillor Russell?
I think we should just note it, but I think it's a step forward that they are trying to tell us what's going on.
Forward planning. Okay. Agreed note. Okay. Next one then is the adoption of planning obligations. Councillor Russell, anyone wish to comment?
Just to say that it's something I looked at for council and we discussed it, and I'm just glad that it's now fixed as planning law, and that I'll say it in open council that if these planning obligations had been in place when the Orchard Centre was built, the Orchard Centre would be a much better building than it actually is. So it's a big step forward, some of the planning obligation requirements that are in this new document.
Okay, thank you. But we're noting. Okay, thank you. Next item then is the temporary closure of footpath 24. Any comments? No. Okay, happy with that. Noting. So we'll then move on to the public open session. Item 14. Any members of the public wishing to speak? No. Okay. In which case, I'll adjourn for the period. The